What's up everyone, my name is Josh and this is Josh Unboxed, and welcome back to the Daily Grind, a video series where I talk about particular cards, plays, strategies, and news and how it affects the sports card market. In other words, what I try to do is try to help us navigate through the craziness of this sports card market that we're in today, and also to help us make much more sound purchasing decisions. And today, I want to do a discussion again. I was going to talk about Juan Soto because I figured I was talking about Tatis, Acuna, and then Soto's next in line, but I kind of want to pump the brakes on that a little bit and talk about a particular topic that's been on my mind for this past week, and that is the vintage sports card market. Now, if you've been following content creators, if you've been following Instagram, particular card accounts and stuff like that, you've probably seen charts in which it shows you that the 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan card, the 1996 Topps Chrome Kobe card, the 2003 LeBron Topps Chrome rookie card have all jumped up like crazy in the PSA 10s within this past month or so. And it's been really wild, and that's lifting up a bunch of the vintage card market. Now, usually when I see a run up of something, there's usually a catalyst that helps push it forward. And I think everything started at the beginning of the year when that 1979 Wayne Gretzky O-Pee-Chee card, PSA 10, sold for over $1 million. Some eyes shifted towards vintage after that. But then we got that big sale of that 1952 Mickey Mantle card for over $5 million. Now a whole bunch of eyes are on the vintage card market. And, rightfully so, vintage cards are a good long-term play. If you think about the Gretzky 79, right? It appreciated from 1979 all the way up to 2021. Same thing with the Mantle from 1952 all the way up to 2021, and you see the values of that. So yes, vintage cards are a great long-term hold. But my question is, are we buying the right cards? Okay, it's not just enough to say I'm buying into vintage. You got to be selective, and you got to pinpoint and hone in onto particular cards if you really want to make those long-term investments and make sure these cards sustain over time. Okay. Now, if you've watched other content creators, you hear them talking about vintage cards. I'm shifting my strategy to vintage. I'm selling my current collection and taking my profits and rolling it into vintage. That's cool and all, man. They're telling you that, yeah, this is a good play, right? They're telling you the what, I'm buying into vintage, right? They're telling you the why, I'm buying it because they're great long-term holds. However, there's one piece of information that's missing, and that is the how. Because the vintage sports card market is a beast in itself. If you're jumping in and you're a new sports card collector and investor that just jumped in this past year and you try to jump into the vintage card market, you're gonna get overwhelmed. Okay, there's just so many things. You thought there was a lot of cards during this time. There's just so many different plays out there. And it's not just about the particular cards, right? Because some people will tell you, oh, what's so great about vintage is that there's not as many rookie cards. But there's a difference, because you have to take into consideration the pop reports. Okay, it's not about just what's the hottest card. You also got to dive deeper into the pop reports and see which grades are undervalued and which grades can have long-term growth. I mean, obviously the 10 and 9s are great buys because those are the more premium cards, but there is value in the 8s, 7s, 6s, and in earlier sets in the 70s and such, in 5s and 4s. Even before the 50s, they're 5s and 4s, 3, 2, 1s. They're all great value. So the question becomes, how do I determine what is a better value? Like I told you, like people can say to you, I'm buying into vintage, I'm buying into these cards because of these reasons. And like I said, what's missing, the biggest piece, is the how. And, there's an old proverb that always comes to my mind, and that is, it goes somewhere along the lines of, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish, you feed him for life. What I aim to do in my channel is to do that, to teach you guys how to fish. So when I give you guys particular plays and I talk about particular cards, I do that whole entire thing where I show you guys my screen, I show you card ladder, I show you the charts, I show you my reasonings, I talk about what we see, and I pull up eBay sold listings, eBay auctions, to kind of give you guys an idea of how I look into things. So that way, if you felt like, if you wanted to do it, you can replicate what I do and to any card you want to buy into and help yourself make sound purchasing decisions. It's a crazy card market, so I'm hoping to provide that type of value to you guys on that end. So about vintage cards, right? The way I kind of look at vintage cards is the pop report is very important. You got to think about it this way. In a vintage card, an old card, PSA 10s and 9s are very hard to come by. You got to think about who was collecting during that time. As kids, we didn't care about the condition. We threw them in penny sleeves, we threw them in binders, we threw them in shoe boxes, we threw them in cabinets and drawers, you know. If it's a really big car, we'll put it into a top loader, or we'll put it into those snap cases, right? Before mags were made. The way we kept our cards in good condition was very minimal. So that's why you don't see as many 9s and 10s out there, and that's why there's a premium on that. So what I focus on is I try to focus on the 8s, 7s, and 6s because there is value to be made. Now, what I do is I take the PSA 10 pop report, I look at how many PSA 10s there are, then I look at the value. Then I do the same with the 9s. I look at how many 9s there are, I look at the prices, and I kind of compare and see what the multiplier is between the 10 and the 9. And I do the same thing with the 8 and the 7, 6, and so on and so forth to determine if the lower grades have value. Now, with vintage cards, lower grades have value. And it's not just about the lower grades too, because a PSA 4 that's well-centered will probably sell a lot better than a PSA 5 that's off-centered. So you got to take that into consideration as well. So that's why I say this whole vintage market is a beast. It's not just about buying a 10 or a 9. We've been conditioned, if you're a new collector, to always think about buying the 10s, PSA 10 or bust. And then the contingent of people saying, hey, buy into PSA 9s. Yes, PSA 9s do have value. But you gotta look at the 8s, 7s, 6s, the 5s, the 4s, 3s, 2, 1s. You gotta look at all the pop report, the whole entire pop report, and see where the value is. Now, if the PSA 10 has only a pop report of 100 and there's 1,000 people jumping onto the market, the chances of getting that card, very slim to none. There's a high demand. That card probably gonna be skyrocketing in price. So what you need to do is to ask yourself, is this card attainable? Is the 10 attainable? Is the 9 attainable? And if you could be honest with yourself and say, you know what, it's not attainable, but I'm okay with an 8, then get the 8. And that's what I did with the Jeter, the 93 SP Jeter. I went ahead and got the 8. The 10 wasn't attainable, the 9 wasn't attainable. I went ahead and got the 8 because I felt like that was good value, and I did the comparison of the cost of each card and the multipliers between them. That's how I was able to determine whether I should buy that Jeter card or not. But that's my process on how I look at into vintage cards. I look at the pop report. The pop reports do matter when it comes to vintage cards. Don't neglect it. Don't neglect the 8s. Don't neglect the 7s. Don't neglect the 6s, 5s, 4, 3, 2, 1s, because there is value in those cards. Okay? Just because we come in a world where PSA 10 is king and then PSA 9 is a good value, we oftentimes forget that PSA 8 is a good value, 7 is good value, 6 is good value. Because in the modern cards, PSA 8 is trash, right? I mean, PSA 8, you might as well buy a raw and try to get it graded yourself. I mean, with no other way to say it. But yeah, vintage cards. Vintage cards are a great strategy, a great investment strategy to put some money into that. You got the what, you got the why, but how about the how? And that's what I hope I provided with you guys here today. I mean, we could do more of a deep dive as I look into more vintage cards, because I have a couple of vintage plays in my head that when I was focusing on it, that I saw that, hey man, there's a lot of potential in this. And I'm gonna present those things in future videos as we go along, and I'm just doing more research. Most of the time what I do is when I pinpoint a particular card I want to purchase, I observe the market for a little bit. Most of the times when I try to make these decisions, especially those big purchases or cards that I think are great long-term holds, I tend to do the research and just sit back a little bit and just kind of watch it and see where it goes. And if I see an inkling of it starting to rise, and that's when I jump in. I mean, it's a no-brainer that vintage cards are great long-term holds. But like I said, are we buying the right cards? And you know the what, you know the why, but do you know the how? Research is important for vintage cards. I really do hope you guys found some value in this. If you guys did, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. I do these things daily, and you know, it's something that I enjoy doing. I love talking about sports cards. I love talking about particular plays. I love talking about particular strategies. I love sharing it with you guys because, you know, there's a million of plays out there, and we can't expect to buy in all of them. With that being said, my name is Josh, and I'll see you guys in the next video later.